Hey guys, I'm racing Chewyside, and I got a video for you guys today, and it's a tutorial on what I use to record my videos and gameplay. Now, the software is called Open Broadcast Software, and despite its name, it can be used for recording, as well as streaming to Twitch and YouTube. And it's a free software. This is also going to be a two-part video, as there's a lot to go on about it. Just to fit in one long video, I don't feel like doing that. So, for part one, we're going to talk about recording, and if you click in this blue area here, it'll be part 2, which will be Twitch streaming, so we'll go ahead and get to that. But first I want to talk about some other things. Most people will mention 2 programs or one program that's a paid software right off the bat when you ask, oh, what can I use to record my gameplay? And people will always go with Fraps. Now, you do gotta pay for Fraps, that's the thing. I just use it for screenshots most of the time anymore. I don't really use it for anything. For one, it creates freaking huge file sizes, lossless file sizes, so if you want the best of the best quality, Fraps is good for gameplay, but it will take a big performance hit on most PCs. So I don't recommend it. And talking about other paid software, there's also Marilla's Action that comes to mind. Now, this can record in really good quality files, real good quality like Fraps, so huge file sizes, or smaller file sizes if you select MP4. Now, I can't really use this. I just don't have any need for a paid software like this. It's good for what you get, but there's still not as much customization as you would get for open broadcast software, or compared to that. Only thing I really like about Action is it records your game audio as well as your microphone audio in 2 separate channels, so it's not overlapping each other. You can tweak the volume of either or without messing either one up and doing tons of editing. That's one good thing I like about it. But is it for me? Not really. And one more, I just clicked on an ad, didn't I? One more I want to talk about is called NVIDIA Shadowplay under GeForce Experience, which is what I'm using to record this video with right now, mainly for the fact is I can't use OBS to record a tutorial of OBS, because there's some things that you need to do that are unexplainable when you're looking at a blank screen. So, the thing about Shadowplay is here, it's a encoder built into a GTX 600 series and up, so 700, 900, usually built into those GPUs, and you can get it to select the allow desktop capture, which is what I'm using to do this video. You can also select your keyboard shortcuts. The thing about Shadowplay is it can save the last 20 minutes of gameplay regardless if you're recording or not. As long as you have it enabled, it'll pretty much create temporary files. So that's one thing I recommend, is changing your temporary files location to anything except for an SSD. So that's what I did. As well, you can also record manually as well, so that's a good thing there too. You can do streaming to Twitch as well, but there's no customization whatsoever. This is all you get, is this little screen here. You get your mode, which will be Shadowplay out, and this I'll explain later. I'm not going to go through it right now, so I'll have another tutorial after part 2 of this tutorial, so a whole bunch of tutorials to get out. So anyways, just get to it. Just go ahead and go to your internet here. Type in Open Broadcast Software, and your first link will be obsproject.com, so you want to click that. Now you get presented with 2 things here. The right side is OBS multi-platform, which just came out. I haven't tried it yet. I need to install Linux to see how well it works on all these platforms. I don't have OS X, so screw that. But I'm using the 0.653 beta, so we'll go with this. Windows 7 and 8, you click it, it'll download an exe, you install it, and you'll have an icon that looks a little like this one here on the left that I'm circling with my mouse. And it'll, by default, Windows will put it as a 32-bit shortcut. So I delete that shortcut and right click here in the start menu in Windows 8. I right click on the 64-bit and that, I right click on it and click add the pin to start, and that'll put it on my start menu. So yeah. So when you install it, you're presented with this. See, there's absolutely nothing on here. It's really quite boring. And even if you try to record, you'll get this. So there's nothing there. So what you do is we're going to start a new profile. So click Profiles, New. And I'm just going to call this one Test. And you still won't get anything when you click Preview or Start Recording. So we'll go to Settings. You're on your general tab here. You can select your language from anything from English all the way down here. Oh, well, forget about it. It's not important. And setting profile, you can change your name to your profile if you have it already made, and it won't change anything but the name. So you click rename. So click apply, and that'll save that. Under your encoding, you're presented with here. Under video encoding, you're presented with 3 encoders. The first one will be X264, Quick Sync, and NVIDIA NVENC. Now this last one here, the NVIDIA one, is what Shadowplay uses to do its encoding. So you can check that if you don't want your processor to take a hit. Your GPU will, though, when you're maxing it out. It pretty much has no performance whatsoever on anything, but when you're maxing it out, it'll start stuttering, so I don't use it. I use my encoder, because i7, so why not? So that's what I use. You also get slightly higher quality compared to NVIDIA at the same bit rates. Now what I do here is the UCBR. I uncheck it at first. I move this 8 to 10 on quality balance, and I recheck it. I don't know what this does. I don't think it does anything. I'm just paranoid and just want to make sure. And for bitrate, the lower recommended settings for YouTube will be 8,000 on the bitrate, but I use 12,000 for some videos, not all of them. My actual preference is, for stuff like, really, if I want the highest quality gameplay that'll be acceptable on YouTube, I move that to 50, but we're not going to do that because that's just a ridiculous amount of bitrate. Here I have this checked. This enable CBR padding, and then I move down to audio encoding. I leave this alone, make sure the channel set as stereo, and I move bitrate down to 160 or 192. We'll go 192 for this one. Click apply because it'll yell at you if you don't, and then we go to broadcast settings. Now the mode, you can see this looks pretty confusing. We won't worry about this till the second part, so make sure to stick around for that. So you click mode on this little drop down menu and click file output only. Remember, this is for recording only right now. I'll get back to Twitch streaming in part 2. Now file path, you can select where you want it to save your videos. So I made a new folder in my videos under my E drive, which is my secondary hard drive. Because I have 2 hard drives in there and 1 SSD. And I just pick preset video I had named. You can name a new video and it'll save that, and you don't have to keep renaming it every time. Just let it write over itself. So it'll be S and then S1, 2, and 3. It'll renumber itself so it won't overwrite. That's what I do. Now for the replay buffer length, this means, say you want to record 2 minutes, you type in 120 seconds, but I'm not going to do that. And it's like Shadowplay, like I mentioned, it'll save your last so-and-so minutes of gameplay that you have done, or whatever your replay buffer length was set to. So this was 1 second, that's all it'll save. And you can select your file path there the same way you do with this one. So click apply, it'll save those settings, and on to video. Now for video adapter, you can have your built-in Intel GPU or your NVIDIA GE, or like mine, it's just the GTX 760. So that's what I picked. I don't have my integrated graphics chip enabled and the motherboard yet, so I was going to do that to mess around with QuickSync, which is what Intel would use as an encoder, so that's cool. For resolution, for the base resolution, I have it set to whatever my monitor is, so 1920 by 1080. And if you're going to want to do 720p, don't mess with that. You want to go to this resolution downscale. So say you want 720p, you go down to here where it says 1280 by 720. So click that. And when you're doing this, what I do, under filters, click length sauce, best detail, 36 samples. Gives me the best detail over 720p. But I use 1080p most of the time, so I'm putting that back. You won't get this as an option, so just putting that out there. Now your frames per second, you can set it to 30 or 60, now that YouTube supports it. I usually use 30 because, especially videos like this, mainly for the fact you don't really need 60 FPS right now. Now high-speed gameplay, like Call of Duty, hell yes, use 60, that's what I would do. As long as you have the upload. Anyways, disable arrow. If you check this, that's for like Windows 7 users. It disables your arrow interface, so it's not as demanding when you're doing desktop recording. It doesn't matter when you're in game, so don't worry about it. Now move on to audio. Now your desktop audio device, I believe, would either be your headphones or your speakers. So I select speakers, that's what I use most of the time. And microphone auxiliary, you can set it to your microphone, which is this. It's an Audio Technica of some sort, so yeah. And since I'm using an XLR interface, I only have one plug on the left channel, so only one side of my audio comes out the left side. So what I do is click force mono or auxiliary to mono, and everything else I leave alone. So on the hotkeys, under audio, you can set a push to talk button. So if you have that checked, which you can do there, and you select whatever as a push to talk, say F or something, it'll only pick up voice when you press that button. I'm going to clear that because I don't use it. Except for one scenario, which will be on Thursday. The mute unmute mic, I usually set that. I always set that. And the mute unmute desktop can mute your sound, like game sound and stuff. I don't do that. Now the start stream, stop stream, you can leave those clear. You don't need to set a hotkey, but for recording you can. So I use the same button for, goddamn it, for starting and stopping my recording. As well, you can set a button for your replay buffer, which I don't use, so you can mess with that all on your own there. So click apply, it'll save your settings. And here's probably one of the trickier parts of this software. This probably what puts a lot of people off about it. It looks really confusing, but you can get help there by looking at OBS project or whatever, you go into their forums. But here, I use multi-threaded optimizations. As long as you have a multi-core processor, have that checked. It is by default. Actually, all this is by default. The process priority class, I have it normal. This is 700. I've seen some people put it to 1300. I don't know exactly what it does, so let's not worry about it. And everything else right here in this general tab, I leave alone. Like it is, like you see it now, so go ahead and take a look at that. If you want, you can pause it. But moving on to video. Now the X264 CPU preset, if you're using the X24 setting, you'll get this presented. And for example, I'm going to go back to encoding and select the NVIDIA NVENC. Click apply, and then I'm going to go back down to advanced. Now what you see in the video now, it changed. The NVIDIA NVENC preset, you can select it to whatever you want there. I usually put high performance. Doesn't really matter, doesn't really hit you that much. And the encoding profile, I'll leave all this like it is there. But we're going to do this for X264, so go back and change that. If you followed me right there, so yeah, go back to advanced. And under CPU preset, I changed from very fast to super fast. Click yes, because it'll just says what it does. But the reason why I do this is I don't want to take in a bigger hit on my CPU for not that big of a gain. If you have a real good, like say you have a 6-core Intel, you can go down here to slower. The slower you go, the better it'll look, but the more performance it'll hit. So I do that. Now, Twitch, by default, requires you to have this encoding profile to main, so that's what I do too for recording. Click apply because everything else from here on down is left at default until we get to part 2. Now the QuickSync encoder, that's for that Intel QuickSync that you could use for encoding. We'll skip it because I haven't used it. And the noise gate for the last part, I have it checked. This little part here under general is all default, so make sure this is checked if you want to use the noise gate. You don't have to. I do, just because it blocks out a lot of background noise. And here you gotta, this is all trial and error on the side. You gotta mess with this until you find your settings. Generally, what I want it to do, it'll shut up when it gets to this decibels below this point, and when you get above this point, it'll open up. So pretty much like you pressing a button. Scene switcher, have no clue what it does, so we'll skip it. So now we have something, and you're still not able to record, as you can see, which gives me a chance to talk about these little things here. This little red bars here. For microphone, I have it maxed out like I would, you know, that's just letting the program use your, whatever your Windows volume's at. And for the speakers, it's really hard to hear over gameplay at 100%, so I move it down. You can have it at around 10%, or in my case, like 3. So that's pretty much all there is to that. So if you're still wanting to record, say, your desktop, you want to go over here to scenes, and they already have a scene by default. It just says scene, so right click on it. If you want to rename it, click rename, and I'm just going to name it desk. Call it OK. You can also set a hotkey as well. So I don't know what I set mine to. I think it was like Shift V or something like that. And you'll still get presented with blank, so you go over here to sources, right click, and if you want to capture your desktop, click monitor capture. Press OK. This all I leave all by default here. The monitor, you can select which one out of, say you have 2 monitors, you want to use your primary, so that's what I selected here. Or if you want to record your secondary, click 2, but I'm using primary, so just stick with those settings. So now when you click preview stream, you should get something. See, there you go, see? So that's what you do for recording your desktop. Now for gameplay, it gets a little more serious or a little more complicated. Not really complicated, but just a little more. So you're going to go back to scenes and click add scene. Now we're just going to call this one games. Press enter. You can set a hotkey to that too, which I'm going to do. And then you go to sources again, same stuff, and go down here to game capture. You can also select window capture, say if you're playing a game like Minecraft and you want to capture the window, you can select that as well, but I'm going with OK for the game capture. And you can see under application, there's nothing there. So what you do here is, I'm going to have to go find me a game now. Alright, we're to this point here. I had to go open up Audacity and use that as an audio thing real quick. So we're still at this page, so you want to enter a game like I'm going to do right here. Alright, just let that load or whatever. So I'm going to Alt-Tab out of the game. That's one downside to this. It doesn't automatically pick up whatever you're playing on, like Shadowplay here. So, just to see blank, you want to click refresh. And there you go. See, Borderlands 2 pops up. So, everything else will leave default here. So, I press OK. And when I click previous stream, it'll be blank at first. But say I go into the game. So I'm going to go in the game, press any key, then I'll tab out again. And you can see it right there. It's a screenshot right now, but it's actually physically you're going to record what you're seeing here. So when you go back in the game, it's actually going to continue to record. So you'll get a video file out of it. And just to show you, since let me stop real quick and I'll start recording. So I'll click start recording, there's blank. And to make sure I'm not just saying things, not using Shadowplay, you can see there's that menu right there. So let's go back to Borderlands 2 and I'll do some gameplay here. Just, you know, footstep here and there, or just continue where I left off. Sawtooth Cauldron, I remember being here. So you can see I'm recording right now. So that's enough for now. So I'll tab back out. Just click stop recording. And just to make sure you still get the point that I'm not just messing around here. Go to videos and I go to my OBS folder. And it should say like ask something 15 right here. Recording, there's blank. You could hear me again there, so I'm going to mute myself. But yeah, there it is. There should be some gameplay. You see me moving around there. So yeah, there you go. That's proof that it works, and that should be the end of part 1. Believe it or not, so remember to stay around for part 2. I actually have a thing right here, so you can click right now. And that'll take you to part 2, where we'll talk about Twitch streaming. Anyways, this has been Sim Racing Chewyside. Yeah.